Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Raja will help you. In the meantime, we have Khoo Salma to make a presentation. Yeah.
I sent the link to our WhatsApp group.
Yeah. Check out the WhatsApp group. The WhatsApp group. Check out
Okay.
the WhatsApp group. The WhatsApp group.
I'll start now. Should I
Huh?
start?
Suleiman, check your WhatsApp group. Yeah. Large screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
This is, I think, the fourth time I've presented, so I refined it, and then I have put in more about the methodology, which
Alright.
Prof asked me to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ulam Eaters and Gardeners, Cultural Meanings of Edible Plant Activity Among a Virtual Community. So basically it's a WhatsApp community, so I call it a virtual community. And there were previous titles. Okay, so the research topic and problem is to explore and describe cultural meanings and motivations of social actors engaged in a virtual community of edible plant gardening enthusiasts. It's a community of edible plant gardening enthusiasts. What types of people are engaged in edible plant gardening, discovery and gardening, edible plant discovery and gardening, and why are they engaged in this activity? So the goal is to explore and describe. So the inductive research strategy is used as it can answer both what and why questions. Okay. So introduction to Ulam. So I presented this earlier also. Ulam is a Malay word for fresh local herbs usually consumed as salad side dish in Malay cuisine. But it also generally applies to some, not just the leaves, but sometimes they include roots and all that. Ulam is part of Malay and Peranakan food heritage. For urban Malays, it is reminiscent of makanan kampung or rural food, village food, back to the village. Ulam are part of a repertoire of medicinal plants used in Malay healing, and the growing trend in ulam consumption is linked to dietary health and alternative medicine. Okay, next. How do I do the next page? Oops. Okay, so researchers' motives and goals for social inquiry. So actually, I'm very much involved in the activity which I'm researching. So I have to explain that in the beginning. I have a long-standing fascination with ulam as food and biocultural heritage. And I've been noting the convergence of different trends in slow food, permaculture ethics, increasing awareness of the garden to table, food and experiential quality. So I view that reconnecting with nature, an uptick in urban farming during the COVID pandemic is a matter of personal agency in response to environmental and climate problems. So I started this WhatsApp group, and I'm also an active member. I'm also gardening. So the methodology part. Okay, so ontological assumptions. So how do we know what we know? So people try to make sense of their encounters with the physical world and other people. They construct their everyday reality based on what they interpret to be plausible and credible. The social researcher designs a social inquiry to describe the constructed social reality of an individual or shared constructed social reality of a groups of people. And the social inquiry itself is framed and colored by theoretical ideas. And then the social researcher constructs findings which are descriptions of what is observed based on what evidence is considered to be adequate or legitimate, and converts these descriptions into technical language. Research paradigm, interpretivism. Social actors interpret phenomenon as part of their own sense-making process in their everyday life, and through a dialogic process, construct cultural symbolic meaning system, generating intersubjective meanings as first-order constructs. As part of the observation and inquiry into everyday lives of the people, the social scientist describes the above-mentioned constructed social reality of these social actors, generating descriptions as second-order constructs. And then by abstracting social scientific concepts from lay concepts, the social scientist explains the social reality in technical language and generates theoretical explanations, hypotheses, and models as third-order constructs. Researcher stance, naturalist, faithful reporter, reflective partner, conscientizer. The researchers should be immersed in the way of life of social actors and research participants, grasp their thinking, be sensitive to their social setting. Then we should present the social actors' point of view in their own words. Then we describe and report the constructed social reality in such a way that social actors can recognize themselves and others from the researchers' accounts. Social scientific concepts will be abstracted from lay concepts, but must remain consistent with the latter. And so the researcher alternates between immersion and reflection, record our own impression, my own impressions. So the research strategy is abductive. Starting point is to discover the everyday lay concepts, meanings, and motivations embedded in the language of social actors. The purpose is to generate social scientific accounts from everyday accounts. And the process is to investigate the world of these social actors, the motivations for the activities, the cultural symbolic meaning system, the tacit knowledge, the unspoken roles, and social constructions embedded in language. So the steps would be data collection, apply data reduction techniques and analysis, develop theory, and then repeat in a iterative and cyclical fashion. So the probing and sensitizing concepts used here are health, heritage, and foodways, or food heritage and foodways, environmental ethics, consumer ethics, experience of reconnecting with nature. And these, I call them contextual factors. I don't know, maybe there's a more technical word for it, but there's a urban context, there's a, the context of this current pandemic lockdown situation, which is what everybody's thinking about. And then also the constraints of the social media platform. Data collection. So what I'll do is I will study all these WhatsApp texts and images, and then and right now it's like a kind of quite a lot of text and images because they're busy, WhatsApping everybody every day. Even I don't have time to read it every day, but it's like a hermeneutic. This is the first hermeneutic process, so that I prepare the detailed questionnaires.
I don't know, 1,000. Okay, go ahead. Yes.
So Prof is also in this group, and
I'm
he
also
also
in this
is
group,
also
yes.
a great gardener. He shows us all his melons and don't know what fruits.
Passion fruit.
Passion fruit, yeah, passion fruit.
That's
Okay,
the only thing I can share. I do not know where to tap it.
And then select the research participants for purposive sampling. So I will get the most active members. So maybe 20 to 30 active members. I don't know whether we have 20 to 30, but it should be at least 15 to 20 that I can think of. So each research participant should fill out a one-page biodata form so that I have the essential biodata, and then conduct semi-structured interviews in semi-natural settings, 1 to 2 hours per interview, transcribe the interviews, and then along the way, note down my own ideas and observations. And then the questionnaire topics, basically, they will be asked, what do you think, what is the meaning of ulam? What do you think ulam is? Why do you consume ulam? What are your experiences with ulam as, growing up? What activities are you engaged in connection with edible plant gardening? What do you take away from this urban gardening? That means this WhatsApp group lah, and your interactions with this WhatsApp group. And then are you influenced, what do you think of other people, or, who do you think are important, or, what is to try to find out what is the influence of other social actors. And then what do they think about the significance of this group and its activities. Then data reduction and analysis. So I should read all these interview transcripts carefully, line by line, and then this is another hermeneutic process, and prepare the initial categories. So then I'll start to do some bracketing and segment the data into meaningful analytical units. Then I will do coding, assign segmented data to initial categories, and then re-examine all this meaningful data, whether it fits, it doesn't fit. If it doesn't fit, then I've got to think of new categories. And then, so this is inductive coding. Actually, to draw the new categories and to refine the categories based on, actually all these, what the data set, what is found in the data, and to discover new things in the data. Maybe I discover new ideas or new connections. and then reassign the segmented data. Then construct typologies from everyday typifications which illustrate typical motives for typical social actions in typical social situations. So abstract the individual motives and actions into models of ideal types, formulate hypotheses and test the typologies and behavioral patterns, and continue and repeat and refine. So develop the theory, generate accounts in technical language of social scientific discourse, generate typologies, constructing ideal types as models, establish patterns of motives and meanings and the situations in which they occur. So develop the researcher's theory. So hypothesize relationship between concepts of structural conditions, and then there's also concepts of social agency. So then relate these concepts to existing theoreticians' concepts and elaborate on the theory iteratively. So I think this part, I kind of just have a vague idea, and I will know more about it when I get to that stage. After I get past the first stage, then, I will have a better resolution of the second stage. Okay, so the research questions. So I'm interested in what types of social actors are attracted to edible plant gardening. So what are their individual motivations? What are their perceived benefits in relation to health and dietary practice and their own dietary? I mean, some of them may be vegetarian, some may not be. So there's some sort of different types of people involved. And then what are their typical roles and activities? What are the cultural meanings attached to the range of activities? What are some examples of intercultural sharing? Because of the people who are, maybe familiar with traditional Chinese medicine or familiar with Ayurvedic medicine or familiar with, Malay healing. So there will be some people have more knowledge about certain plants. Then what role does curiosity play in enhancing the exploratory activities and social interactions? I don't quite know what to, I mean, this is actually one of the important questions which I think the new categories will develop from it, because I think there is a role of curiosity in discovering biodiversity, which is in an urban context. Of course, we're not in the rainforest, okay? But it is something that is very close to the social actors. And then what are some examples of the social actors' tacit knowledge and rules? And then what are the global trends that influence the social actors in the activities? What do the social actors learn or take away from the group? What are the driving factors? So one is that, what the social actors say, and then I also have to add my own observations, and then how does it fit into the local food discourse? Because this is, I'm trying to do it as food anthropology, because I think that's probably the easiest, for me to do. And so the existing discourses, it's the ethnobotanical studies. When you type, Ulam, usually what comes up are all these toxicology studies, and so they will say, okay, these things these are the properties of ulams, and these are the health benefits, and this is, don't take too much, because of toxicology. And then there's also health studies, which are very general. So they talk about people should consume more vegetables, and then they also talk about health benefits of therapeutic gardening. And then in food anthropology, you have, of course, one of the very strong themes in food anthropology is the local food discourse and ethnic food heritage. And usually it's a very specific, and it's kind of like, especially when you talk about ethnic food heritage. I mean, it's something that it could be new to somebody from a different culture, but to us it's very commonplace, I say. Food, so they also talk about different types of values, so like ethical consumption and lifestyle movements. And in anthropology, there is something, it's not about the food itself, but it's about the global organic farming movement. So there's some study about that. So there's definitely gaps in the literature. So this, in ethnology, I would consider this like an ethnology of a Malaysian urban community, which is exploring edible plant gardening with a focus on local herbs. So actually, it's I mean, sometimes I think food, and then sometimes I think gardening, but actually it's like a convergence of the two things. And what's maybe unique about the study is that then it focuses on Ulam, which is very much to do with local biodiversity. Okay, so I think that's it. Finish. Very fast, huh?
It also shows that you have mastered the material well. There are certain points that I like to come in and share my thoughts. Yeah, and oh, you should continue to share your screen because
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah, because
Okay,
right. Okay,
share.
all right. So the idea at the end of this process is that you want to make your research proposal presentation to the CenPRIS committee. So the CenPRIS will appoint a committee and and you will present your research proposal. So my thought is you're about to be quite ready to present to the committee with the following changes, with the following improvements. Yeah. Can we go back to the research question where you have the word explore there?
Okay. Oh, the top, right?
The very beginning. Yeah.
Okay.
With the word. Yeah, the research. This is the one. Yeah, that's the one. Okay. To explore and describe cultural meanings and motivations. Explore now. So now, I think thanks to the educationist and then the current hegemony of what is it? The quantitative method of looking at how we should label our research and all that. Explore would not be considered a level that is PhD worthy. So this can be a problem later in your viva. So you're just exploring. I mean, how can we call it PhD, right? This happens in my last viva where I'm the examiner. I have a big debate over there, and we're just fine, because they talk about the taxonomy and all that, and we become so technical with the words. So we got to find the right word to match with what you want to do. Yeah, so stick to examine, to investigate, to so explore is not good, right? So you got to choose those words. Describe describe is a word that you can use, but it's not a word that you want to use for PhD research question, right? So you might want
to document maybe.
You can use the word. So you want to not just the document, you want to examine, you want to build, you want to theorize. So those are the words. More high level kind of what is it? Research words. So, but then again, it's not something that you want to be worried too much because eventually, even at the viva stage, this can be corrected. Yeah. So, only things that sometimes it helps to have the right words at the beginning. Where's your
Okay, sorry here.
Oh, you got it. Okay. All right. This time you have shifted the balance in your balance of content in your presentation from literature review to more methodology. So so you want to beef up your literature review a bit more. But I can see a lot of your literature and your introduction, giving the background, all that, actually in your methodology section. So you talk about the discourses and all that. Those are actually under the literature review kind of section, right? And then the problem statement, you do need to have clear problem statement. Actually, you had that last time, more or less, if I remember correctly. So you want to beef up that part again. What is it? uh, the theoretical or conceptual vacuum needs to be clearly stated. I think you have a lot there that you can identify as your theoretical vacuum, and so you can, if you can scroll down, you can scroll
Okay.
down. Ulam Urban, okay. Which is the next one. Okay, next. All right. Okay, the next one. This is about the methodology. The next one. Next. Uh, next. Okay, here you do have some. Go back to the previous slide. Okay. So you talk about the contextual factors, right? Urban context, COVID, pandemic, lockdown situation, social media platform. So one of the vacuums is actually contextual vacuum, and you could build a case, a problem statement that leads to the gap, research gap, or conceptual vacuum using contextual vacuum. So one of my students, Dr. Wong Teck An, is now a lecturer in IMTI. He what is it? He identify the wet market, the Jelutong wet market, where we have pasar, the wet market, as a different construct to look at CSR. So the wet market, the whole complex, as a place to look at, to understand CSR. So it's a different contextual definition of what CSR is. So CSR used to be a company or a big corporate or conglomerate and all that. But he looks at the whole wet market as a CSR phenomena, and that is to recontextualize the concept of CSR into a different context. So there's a contextual vacuum, and of course, no one has studied the wet market as a CSR phenomena, right? And there's a lot of CSR happening in the wet market, and it's very much community and all that. So this is one way to develop a vacuum. But I can see there's a lot more vacuum in your slides, So we can talk about the developing the new type of theorizing in the urban context, and if you can connect to the discourses, can you bring down the discourses? You talk about the ethnic food heritage, so that'll be fascinating, right? So you're theorizing on a new kind of you want to let Suleiman come in, okay. You can theorize, build a kind of a new theorizing or theory building for the urban community, focusing on Ulam, and how it's also what is online community. So there, within that context, you can come up with some kind of a theoretical conceptual gap there. So it's also up to you on how you want to slant it, how you want to slice this, and and that actually would have an influence on your research questions as well. So remember, all research is about answering research questions, and the research questions you want to have is the research questions that would fill up a certain theoretical gap. So you want to have that connection between the research questions and the theoretical gap or the problem statement, right? That comes before that, and then the methodology is choosing the right methodology to answer the research questions. So so you talk about the gap in literature here, food anthropology. By the way, the other one is actually the methodological gap itself, right? So there are many types of gaps: the methodological, contextual, conceptual, as well as theoretical. But the part that is important, that can sometimes bring down a grade during the viva, is actually the theoretical gap, a theoretical vacuum. that actually happened in the last Viva where I'm the examiner as well, because there wasn't any theoretical contribution, so that's an important part. So the point here that I want to connect with your gap in literature that you highlighted is the anthropology. You're right, there's a lot of work that's been done in the food discourse is anthropological, but the way you're approaching it is phenomenological. So usually abductive is very much phenomenological. So this is another way that you can frame your research, because your research is very much similar to ECO's research, which is where it's a research where the theorizing is actually carried out by the social actors themselves. And if I understand from your methodology, eventually you want to develop ideal types, typologies, and all that. And that goes very well with phenomenology. And whereas anthropologists do, but very, very seldom do they come up with typologies, right? So, in the food anthropology or other anthropological research, typologies is seldom the outcome, seldom, but there are, but very few. So that will be one particular area of conceptual or gaps that you can connect to. So you want to highlight that part as well. So it depends on how you want to couch this, how you want to frame this. If you frame it focusing on the contextual part, then your research question must reflect that focus, right? And you want to focus on the methodological part, then your research questions should include something like the social actors, meanings, conceptions, paradigms, or whatever about Ulam. So that will be that would be something that you want to capture in your research question. So at the end, when you have your findings, you say, look, I've uncovered or discovered these findings which answer all my research questions, and these findings lead to a new kind of theorizing, new kind of theory building. So and so basically you will have your your PhD that way. Yeah. So that is actually the essence of the research itself. Yeah. So you get that part of my comment?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of. Okay, so actually, I started up with anthropology because I'm more familiar with anthropology.
Yeah.
And then, because then I started to look at phenomenology, which I think is very suitable for this topic because if I were doing it for in terms of anthropology, then I would be the initial idea was actually to visit the wet markets
Yeah.
and then to actually have more of the cultural context.
Yeah.
But then that's of course that's not possible. And then also the problem with anthropology, sometimes it essentializes the culture, which I also don't like.
Yeah.
So in this case, so I've been following your lead, and I think that it is very suitable. So but is it okay if I still do it under anthropology degree? Because I mean, when I read the theory, it
Sure,
says it's more of a sociological
yeah, sure,
research, right?
sure. The lines between anthropology and sociology is so fine and massive. It's more politics than ontological lines, I think. Right? So it's like this unnecessary war between anthropologists and sociologists that I think I, I, I'm not sure the new generation of sociology and anthropologists still carry that baggage. Maybe so, I'm not sure, but because there's even cyber anthropology right now, right? So what is a cyber anthropology? Basically, they immerse themselves in in online communities and but if you go to the purists, the pure anthropologists, that's silly, right? How could you immerse yourself in the community just through online, right? So, but then the new anthropologists are very much like sociologists too. So this, and the sociologists are going into the areas of anthropology, studying what is it? Studying natives, not studying different groups as well. Anthropology are going to there's urban anthropology right now. So the lines are so blur right now. So eventually you come down to methodological difference, methodological paradigms. I see that way more than anything else. And it is just silly. Should I use a hammer or should I use a sword or should I use a saw? Right? The debate becomes like that basically, right? It's just, we have this what is it? This sense of exaggerated sense of self-importance. You know? So we think that our field is so important that it is superior and all that. I personally don't think that way at all. So I will accept any field and just recognize there are limitations and strengths and weaknesses in basically all fields. So yes, there's no problem with that at all.
No problem. But so is it something like what they call ethno-methodology, right? Does
Okay.
it fit into that? Does it fit into that?
That part we got to be much more surgical about that, much more technical about that, because we're talking about PhD right now. So in PhD, the area that is most easily attacked is methodology, right? So it's because the methodology is the technical part of the research. That's where we want to guard the most, right? Although that is the most, for me, that's not the most important part. But to succeed in PhD is methodology, and that's where all the attacks will come in. So you want to, if you want to use the word phenomenology, so you want to stick to the phenomenology and the technical definitions and parameters of phenomenology. Right? So
I think that's okay for me. And basically, I'm more interested in the social agency rather than, so the contextual gap is just it has to be addressed in the research, but I'm not so interested in urbanization or that sort of thing. I'm more interested in the agency of the people who are involved.
The social actors themselves.
Yes.
A couple more things I want to say here. I want to. You did say in one of your slides that you talk about what is it? Yeah, and inductive coding. Inductive coding. Yeah. It's okay. So inductive coding. There are two things about inductive coding. One is actually that it shares the same flow as abductive as well, right? So abductive research is more or less like inductive. The only big difference, well, there are a couple of big differences, but one of the big differences is with the entry to understand the world, which is one is social actors there. Inductive would say the researchers will go and pick up and find the data that the researchers wants. But the abductive say you do not know what is relevant, what's not relevant. You get the social actors to do it. But if you enter inductive coding, it will follow a different flow at the end. So inductive coding is interested in hypothesis and testing of hypothesis, whereas abductive research is not necessarily about developing hypothesis. So it might end with theory building, which is good for you because you will end up with typologies or you see typical social actions and all that, right? So you do not need to test the hypothesis, right? You do not need to test the hypothesis.
Okay.
And if you use the inductive coding, it's also related to another type of methodology, which is a grounded theory. So
Okay,
grounded
okay,
theory
get it.
is uses inductive research strategy, right? So, well, one type of grounded theory, by the way. So you do not want to, what is it? Get into trouble with this part of your research, and if there's an examiner that comes in who's really interested into the technicalities of, you know, or grounded theory or and they would really question it. We have a couple of them, more than a couple of them, a few of them, who is into you know, methodological. They are ideologues, you know, they are ideologues. Very dogmatic in their thinking, right?
Okay.
You cannot do this. This is not what prescribed, you know. So,
Okay, I'll take it out. It's okay.
so
Yeah.
yeah, you want, which means following that, you do not need to formulate hypotheses and then you test the hypothesis. Now,
Okay.
how does a phenomenologist uh, uh, who wants to tests quote unquote certain hypothesis? It's simple. A phenomenologist will say, "Is this what you mean?" You know. So you go back and analyze your work, and you discover, you know, a second order construct, or you discover a meaning that you want to interpret. You go back to the social actors, right? So that is the agency is very important. Phenomenology accords almost total autonomy to the agency as far as the first order construct is concerned, right? So we do not interpret things and do not verify them, right? You can do it as second order construct, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
you just is this what you mean? You know, just ask. It's simple as that. Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't even need to have hypothesis. We just ask.
Okay. So
So
then, so how do you go to theory building? I mean, can you just give me some examples? You said that in the end you contribute, you build theory. So,
okay. So the theory building in phenomenology, right? There's several paths, right? One is the path that you have identified, which is typologies and
mhm.
typologies, which one of my favorites, by the way, because typologies is a good way to capture realities in this world, and if you ask my brother, he will come up with basically four typologies in this world, four, you know, archetypes in this world. You know, so you make sure you come up with that one, right? And then four personality types, for this, for that, basically four sahabats, four
Yeah.
khalifas, you know that, right?
So yeah.
So because
So
there are four.
the
What is
typologies
typologies?
will be within this, the typologies will be constructed within this microcosm. It's like a microcosm, right?
Exactly. We have microcosm.
Yeah.
So, but then you construct the typologies based on what the social actors say. So some social actors will say, well, this is how I interpret it. The other one is how I interpret it. So you will find, you know, many different typologies of how they eat ulam, for instance, right? So, so I even see the typologies need not to be one typologist to describe the whole phenomena. It need not, or one set of typologies. It can be multiple typologies to describe different parts of the phenomena. So how they plant, right? There's one type they just jump in and just put in the seed in the soil, and hopefully something will happen and it will grow, right? That might be me in the beginning there. So there's another typology. So like, let's study first and see. Let's go YouTube it, you know, Google search first, and the other typologies are. I'm not an information seeker. I just ask somebody. I just ask a mentor. A mentor will guide me. A mentor, or do this, do this, do this. Okay, yeah. For instance, right? I just follow what others have done. The successful people done, right? So I follow them. That would be another typology. I'm just coming up with examples, right? So there's one typology that just jump in and do. The other typology, let's study first. The other typology, guide me. Please guide me. I'll do whatever you ask me to do. I'll do. And you know, success is a pattern of excellence. You know, I follow the patterns, I'll get the results. You know, so these are examples of typologies. For instance, right? And you can come up with typologies of how they consume, how they take care or nurture, how they, you know, those, and what you have here is just a beautiful phenomena to study, right? And one thing good about social scientists is that whereas the scientists discover new species, right? Right? We discover we discover new phenomena, we discover new behaviors, we discover new social innovations, right? So we still discover things. So even though this is where I would disagree with a lot of the sociologists, by the way. Sociologists will look at patterns and they say, well, there's anomaly, let's discard it. I say, no, no, no. Emerging pattern is still a pattern, right? Even though you have one person saying something completely off, right? Right? An anomaly, or you still take that as part as your typology, right? And then so it's you have somebody that's completely off from the whole paradigm, but you still capture it, and it is still, what is it? Yeah, it still deserves you're describing it as a pattern. So so that's how I'm giving some examples of. So that's typologies. Typical social actions might be somewhat different. Typical social actions are you're describing a set of a series of actions, right? So it might not lead to typologies. Typologies tend to be much more, and people will talk about how you define a typology. Typology usually will have two axes, right? X and Y, and some say you need to have Z, X, Y, Z, and then it qualifies as a typology. I do not subscribe to that thinking, but we do have some professors over here in social sciences that would think that typology would have to have at least 3 dimensions to develop typology. But I think there's no hard and fast rule about developing typologies. So you can use your creative mind to. That's where the phenomenologists come in. It's in the second order construct. That's where the creative interpretation comes in at the second order construct, right? So how you see certain patterns emerging, and phenomenologists can also what is it? Yeah, be very curious about certain things. So and ask certain probing questions that might not appear in the narratives, in the behaviors. So phenomenologists can ask those questions. Yeah, and when we sense that you know that there's something else beyond the research scope, and if you find that, hey, this is something interesting, let's bring it into the research, you could also still do that. So for instance, when we study the migrant workers, we were interested in the simple question, are you happy working in Pinang? So happiness was our focus, and we discovered the highest state of emotion for a lot of migrant workers is not happiness. So so we developed kind of a theorizing on the twin, the twin tower of emotional fulfillment, and that's gratitude, spiritual gratitude and familial giving. So which is different from happiness, right? Happiness is not the highest state of emotion. One can be sad but still having that spiritual gratitude, which is something that is beyond the scope of the research, what our research at the beginning. So you could do that as a phenomenologist, or using a phenomenological approach. So the only thing is that in PhD, methodology is where we guard ourselves from being attacked. I have this battle paradigm where I go into Viva, because in Malaysia, Viva Bose or the oral defense is almost like one person coming in being tested by 5 gurus. You can 3 gurus, and sometimes the chairperson who's supposed to be moderator, and the chairperson also acts like another examiner, which I think is a wild card, which is not fair, but sometimes it happens as well. So it's good to have that battle paradigm when you go in. not good when you do the research, but so I actually get you to imagine the viva at the end. So, and that's where we want to bring. So I will continue on with a couple more things. The other thing is that you use the word observation, right? So again, in phenomenology, observation is only included in the process of coming up with sensitizing concepts. So we cannot put observation as part of your as part of your data, because it's not coming from the social actors, right?
Okay.
Remember, these are all social actors constructs and conceptions, right? So if you have anything in your observation, you can put it in your sensitizing concept. You can put it in an interview. You go ask, I observe this. Is this what is this what's happening, or what does this mean? I see that this behavior is coming. You can always ask. So it's pure in the sense that we are capturing the essences from the social actors. So the cognitive essence, the mental constructs, So the phenomenology is developed by the philosophers, by the way. So it's very much capturing the thinking, the essence from the social agents. So the social agents is put at the center in this analysis, right? You got to admit, brother. Right. So so the word observation there. Okay, I think once you're ready, Salma, we are ready to schedule. So what then your next step is two things. One is to revise what you have done here, right? And then at the same time, request for you want to send an email to Puan Roshima, Puan Shima, Kak Shima, and to request for a CenPRIS committee research proposal presentation, a research proposal presentation to the CenPRIS committee. So she will start the process of assembling the committee. So you could do I think you should not wait too long. I think within 1 month's time you could proceed with the research proposal, right? So how far are you in your PhD journey now? This is a 6 months yet?
No, it's already 1 year. Actually,
It's
I'm
1 year,
quite
so you must do it. So fast, 1 year. Oh my
yeah.
God. Okay. So yes. Just do it within the next, uh, within October. Yeah, set a
Okay.
time within
Okay.
October. And then
All right.
there will be a consultation among the committee and all that. So
I have another question, which is, I think I missed one of the workshop, online workshop in the beginning, which is to use what do you call it, like the programs, computer programs. So one of them is I think Mendeley, and then is there something to analyze there's some computer program to analyze the data? Are people using that?
Mendeley has to do with references, citations, yes.
Yeah.
So it is very helpful. But when I did my PhD, I did not do that. A lot of people. So it's a good way to systematically document your citations and all that. Uh, I think IPS will offer the workshop from time to time. The library, our USM library also offers that from time to time. I think you have to pay 10 ringgit or free, I'm not sure. Free, yeah, free, yeah.
Mendeley free.
Mendeley free, so Raja attended that. Mendeley is free. So it's from a library, right?
Library.
The library. So library conducts that. So I think library has you want to check the library website. Sometimes they share it with us. But you need to check this but it's very good. It's very systematic, meaning you know I remember my experience of getting reference um, what's his name, I forgot his name now. It's a Sri Lankan name, so it is an important part of my reference I could not get the complete reference, so I have to contact the email and then got hold of this Wakaramilete, right? Sounds a bit like African, but it's a Sri Lankan. And then I got a reply. I said, well, that was my grandfather. He passed away. It was my grandfather. So I struggled to get hold of that reference, but eventually a grandson was kind enough to get hold of his grandfather's writings or book, so he gave me. So although I said I did not use Mandalay, Mandalay is a good system to, if you're starting to do your write-ups, you want to do it systematically. So Mandalay is a good system. And
how about how about like transcribing, and there's somebody mentioned NVivo,
NVivo,
something
Atlas
like
is another one, right?
Atlas.
Yeah. So now I'm letting you in about the research methodology course that we'll be conducting. So we will be doing that. So well, it's okay. I'm sharing this. We are still discussing for CenPRIS program, right? This is not for outside of CenPRIS, because so the research methodology course is all 14 week. Up to the 10 week is for students, all the non-science students. 11 up to 14, we will have 4 weeks focused just on CenPRIS students. So during that 4 weeks, we are discussing, we plan to bring in an expert of NVivo or Atlas. Atlas is something much more the latest one is Atlas. I think my brother uses Atlas. Abanza, you're using Atlas, right?
Yes, I'm using Atlas. Yes, I'm using Atlas.
Yeah. Okay, so Atlas
very powerful, very powerful, very good.
Very good. So,
it's okay, so long as I haven't missed it yet.
no. So
I thought I missed something already. Yeah.
So and before Atlas, now there's NVivo. NVivo is the one that's widely used, but Atlas is the latest one.
Okay.
So before NVivo, we have NuDist, if I'm not mistaken. All this. That's what. So they come up with. When I did my PhD, I never used all this software, so it's like my own CPU up here. But then it's good to at least understand, and they actually help. The software actually help, hopefully. But then it depends on how the software is constructed too, right? So, but then you can always reprogram it and all that. And it's very user friendly, and nowadays it's very user friendly. It's not as before. Last time I remember I had to learn SPSS, even there's something called SysStat, I remember, which is much more supposedly a sophisticated kind of software than SPSS. According to the technologists, that is, right? That the technologists think that is the no more sophisticated, meaning you can do more things. For me, if it's sophisticated, it means computer, do this. That's sophisticated. That's good technology, right? If the technology asks me to do 10 things to do one particular thing, that's not good technology. So the definition of a good tech is defined by the technical people right now, not by social scientists, right? So we got to tell them what's a good technology. The good technology is not we have to do all the coding ourselves. That's not good technology. A good technology is a computer, put this variable into that variable. Yes, sir. Put that. That's good. There is no such computer. There's no technology that hasn't reached that level yet. Which is why I think we social scientists should govern the technology world. But I'm a bit arrogant when it comes to that. But we do have other training, software training that we will provide during the research methodology course. But then there's so much we can do. But then for the CenPRIS students, we have these 4 weeks. We'll do something. We are still discussing among ourselves. So we'll have that. But it's good that you asked about the Mandalay school system. The other one is actually the word itself, right? The word, what is it? Yeah, what do you call it? When you write the chapter, or you want to write the whole, I have 10 chapters, 6 chapters, right? So if you use the word, I don't know what it's called, word review, preview, word something, I'm not sure. Word, word, right? You so when you change anything, the table of contents will automatically change. But you're in the publishing world, so you would know this better, right? So I remember I struggle as well. Whenever I shift a particular table, the whole thing changes, and then I go back to the table of contents. I have to make sure that the pagination is right. You know? But then I guess you're in the publishing world, you would know this better, right? So that's another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have been doing it manually also,
Oh, you
but
doing it
I
manually?
don't know.
I think Word has that function though, you know.
I know.
The whole
You can index and all that.
you can do the
But you have
indexing and all
to,
that.
yeah.
True, yeah.
Oh yeah. So the other thing is that for the chapters of the PhD, is there a template or how do we get this template?
I think IPS has a guide, right? IPS has a guide,
Mm-hmm.
but USM upholds this philosophy that each pool can have its own standards, right?
Okay.
As long as we stick to the same standard while we write that thesis is fine. So if you use, for instance, citation or references, you can use the was it, the APA, whatever. You just stick to that one particular standard. As far as margins are concerned, I think IPS has a format. So people like Suleiman, Muzakir here will be able to advise you on what's the
Just with the IPS template.
IPS template. There is the IPS template there. So
IPS template.
yeah,
Okay.
you could get that from the guide. I think the student's guide, the postgraduate guide.
You can download that.
You can download. In fact, it's given to you
Okay.
right at the beginning, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I have forgotten already.
Yeah, right at the beginning, they give it to you. So there is the guide. So actually, it'd be good to start straight away with that, following that template, right?
Yeah,
Rather than
that's right.
trying to adjust it at the end. So yeah, so a lot of things we become the slave of technology, slave of technical world, rather than we become master of technical world, right? So it's like even the template, like you said, computer follow the IPS template, and computer will do it. Right? It should be like that, right? Yeah, but, yeah. After all, they talk about computer being so smart and all that. A simple command like that, the computer cannot do, right? Yeah, so I understand like that. Yeah, so. It's like, computer, take my word, put in my IPS template. Yes, sir. Done. It should be like that. Technology should be like that. But then we have to do 10 steps before we get to that point. So technology is so lousy, so not human friendly. So my own little take on technology.
Dr. Reevany and
Yes.
Salma, I have one question for Salma.
Go ahead, Pravina.
Yeah, hi, I think. She did state about COVID on her presentation, so I think it's more to the back end. But environmental ethics
Say
and
that
all.
again. Your question again, Pravina, about COVID.
Yeah, COVID, because she did mention about the COVID in one of her slides. Could you go back to that slides again?
That would be the
The
contextual factors.
The later ones, yeah.
I think the contextual factors.
Yeah, the group. Okay, the other. Hold on.
Is it here? No.
The next one. There, you have to read that too.
Yeah? Oh, okay.
Which one?
I mean, I have it in a few slides, yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to ask you something, because you said like environmental ethics. So are you going to look into the sustainable development goal for the environment ethics, something like that? Because you say there's a old methodological differences. I feel like doing this stuff, STD looks like is contributing to the methodological differences currently. Hello?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, personally, I think these SDGs are basically for, like governments and to follow lah, and maybe corporate bodies to follow. But otherwise, it's it's because what can you measure? So you measure something like, I can't remember, water security or something. So these are, it's national indexes which can tell you something about whether they're achieving SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. But it's actually quite meaningless lah for people, for normal people.
Oh.
It's totally meaningless, and they are very artificial constructs,
The thing is, I agree with you though.
No, it's the fashion of the day. So in 5 years' time, they will come out with something else.
Prozo is coming up with the 18th SDG, right? Sejahtera. So he's working on that one. So the 17th, they will come up with 18.
So do you think that is going to give any methodological differences in, because maybe my current research is more to corporate, do you think that will give any kind of methodological differences in the future, currently that could affect the future? How we look at things?
You see, the governments use it, for greenwash, They say they're following, but actually they're not following.
Okay.
So when you criticize, then they say, oh, no, we're following all the SDGs, but it's just like forest cover, So they say, oh, we have 55% forest cover. So the NGOs would look at it and say that you are including palm oil plantation as well. So these are the important things to call out when you talk about SDGs. They are not what they appear to be. They appear to be very objective, but they are not at all. And a lot of things are done. Every country complains. Every country will say that they are following SDGs. Then why is it that the environment is getting worse? The climate change is getting worse. If everybody is following SDGs, so obviously they're not lah. But it's something that for big corporate bodies and for governments, it's something to aspire to. So that's all lah. So it's a framework. It's like a framework for them. Then you can also criticize them according to this framework, or you are ignoring this SDG. If you reach 3 islands, you are actually destroying life underwater. So it's a language that they understand. So you can talk to them with the same language, but it's it's not for individuals to go and live up to this sort of thing.
So this environmental ethics, what are the points that you're looking at? From which particular dimension are you looking at?
Oh, okay. So for example, I think as Prof will know that these people in the group, if they're animal lovers, they're not just plant lovers, they're also animal lovers. And for example, if they even talk about stray animals and what they can do and all that. But environmental ethics is like, for example, if you compost your food waste. So this is one of the practices that is very common in the group. That you want to reduce carbon emissions, you want to reduce waste that goes into the landfill. So you want to compost your food waste, at the same time it's good for your plants. Or you want to reduce the, what do you call it, food miles. So if you get food close to you from the wet market, or instead of importing food, so you're reducing food miles, so you are also being environmentally responsible lah.
So this is more to personal environmental ethics, is it?
Yes,
more
personal.
Okay.
Personal.
And
personal.
I just want to ask you the COVID lockdown. So COVID you only started the group after during the COVID, right? So is this a temporary effect, or that it creates a hybrid kind of environmental ethics, or anything hybrid, post-COVID, pre-COVID and post-COVID kind of thing? Do you think that will affect any of your attitudes or environmental ethics? Is there anything considered into that?
I think okay, with the COVID lockdown, people and also with the climate change scenario, which is the climate crisis is now so terrible, right? So I think people have more time to think about environment, and so they're more, and the people who come to this group, many of them are quite environmentally aware. So it's also because of the lockdown, and because people have to they stay at home, so they have more time to do gardening. So it's not just here, but it's worldwide. This is a new phenomenon which happened with COVID, and it's not that it didn't exist before, but it become something, it just makes it more intense, that this whole experience of urban farming. People realize that there could be food disruptions when you have like
Do you think this is a
crisis.
temporary hype or temporary effect? After COVID, people will be like going back to the original, post pre-COVID attitude. So is this like a temporary? How is that? I'm just looking at the hybrid process of it. Hybrid, pre-COVID and post-COVID effect that will come into the ulam eaters attitude. Would they go back to the old style, because they might not be locked down, they might live the normal life, and then suddenly like they abandon this attitude and all, and then go back to the just that area.
Yeah, I think that because of COVID, so people are more engaged in this, and then even if they go back to, first of all, we don't know how long this pandemic is going to last, and
Yeah.
even if they go back to like quote unquote normal life, but they have learned things during this time which will be with them. It will be part of the
Okay.
of the interest lah. So I think it will have a lasting effect.
Okay.
But of course it won't be as intense. If people are going about their daily life like pre-COVID times, it won't be as intense as what it is now lah.
Okay, thank you, Salma. Okay. Thank you.
It's a good reflection, Pravina, about the COVID thing. It seems like the COVID has led to a lot of new, actually, what is it?
Yeah, because currently I'm doing the research with Dr. Suryati. So I think COVID have actually, to be honest, have impacted a lot of CSR aspect, and they're coming out with new CSR called hybrid CSR practices, where they start collaborating with a lot of companies like Apple, Google. They're trying to track down. There's another part of data violation is there, but COVID have actually created a different new culture which none of the generations have seen.
Yeah.
Are we preparing for that? Are this going to be a temporary? So there's a lot of uncertainties that we are facing, especially the current generation. So so that is quite a huge an area of vacuum, or how are we going to tackle this? So which brings up a lot of curiosities in me and also other researchers. And COVID also has a big stumble block on my research, which I don't know how to do it, but I can say COVID has really impacted every particular of our life.
So in this case, you see, people feel vulnerable. They're more interested in their health because they feel that they could be die from COVID anytime. So they're looking into things which are important for the health to build up the immunity, and this is part of the exploration that the members are engaged in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Good comment, Pravina. There are two things I'd just like to highlight, Salma, about your presentation and about your research. Just now you have a list of 12 questions just now.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that the list doesn't appear to look like your research questions. So you can call it interview questions, interview schemes.
Okay, wait, where's it?
That's the one. Yeah, no, 12.
No, research here.
There,
Research
research
questions,
for 12 questions. Yeah, just remove the word research there. You can just interview. The interviews were refers. I'm not too particular about things like this, but when I'm supervising, I'm putting the examiner's mind when evaluating and looking at works like this. So you also might want, if you call it sensitizing concept, you call it interview schemes or interview themes, you just put like individual motivations, just bold it so that you get,
So,
so it
so
looks like
those questions are questionnaire. I mean, the research. Okay, the interview questions will be this one. I think this is the interview questions.
yeah.
So you're saying that the research questions should actually refer to existing literature and
Yeah,
and
the
what
beginning.
the conceptual gets.
Just now you have it at the beginning. Just now this the second slide, the first slide, you have it there, right? Your research.
Oh, that
question.
one. Okay,
Yeah,
the
so-
research. But you said like
Yeah, where is it? There.
no. I put the research questions at the end,
Uh-huh.
but what is it? Research topic,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So,
But then you said you asked me to come up with 12 research questions.
yeah.
Are
that's-
they interviewers' questions or the research questions?
Okay. So your research questions, if I say that, I say it wrongly. Then, if I say that, so the research questions, if you're talking about research questions, the research questions are actually a flip side of your research objectives, right? So research questions, I prescribe that it should be between 3 to 5 research questions. So is
Okay.
that would be the one that would be the compass, that would be the guide, the general. If you're talking about you want to focus on typologies, you can talk about that, so that should be there's three or four or five would be maximum. I mean, actually you can go beyond that, but you have to answer all the questions, and then you have more to shoulder if you have more than that. So limit it to 3 to 5 research questions. That'll be more than enough. So and then if you expand it, it'll be from the interview questions will help to answer your research questions basically, right?
Okay, I got it. Yeah. Okay. I will revise accordingly.
And then let me highlight the idea of phenomenology as a methodology again. Phenomenology is about getting to the essences, right? So it's not about going in. We are not we are not just observing, listening to what people say. We are digging. We are unearthing the meanings, extracting the meanings from them. So if the meaning does not really appear from the first line of questioning, first line, you go deeper, this is what you mean, you said this, this is what you want to get them to enter their own mind, all right, and to get to that core consciousness of what they feel as what the meanings they attach to that. So you are going deep with the interview questions. So in that sense, phenomenology is probably the most the most powerful strength of or most powerful focus of phenomenology is to get to that essence, the essence of consciousness of particular phenomena from the point of view of the social actors. That is the strength. So to get to the inner world, and sometimes we being humans tend to take for granted of the meanings we attach to things. Because we lead a meaningless life. No, but but we get people to think why are doing why are you doing this? And then they keep on we keep on asking that question until they get to the essence. Yeah, right. Yeah. So, but sometimes it becomes it leads to nowhere. Sometimes it does lead to somewhere. So that is the what is it? The methodological strength or weakness of phenomenology. So if you ask, why do you wear this blue shirt, right? Does blue mean something to you, right? Or why are you wearing this baju Melayu or something like this? This is something mean. Okay, so there might be 2 or 3 meanings attached to one particular behavior. I wear this because my identity being a Malay, I wear this. But I didn't think about I'm wearing this because I'm Malay, and therefore I have to wear this Malay shirt, or I'm not thinking. Well, it so happens that it is among the few left there in my cupboard that is still not washed, right? I can wear this. Could be simple as that. Or because this one has 2 pockets, so it's easy for me to travel around, right? So it be a practical sense. The essence is practicality of my of clothes, right? So that is the essence of my thinking, essence of my behavior is about practicality, for instance, right? Or if you ask my brother, he is into comfort, so he's really into comfort. It doesn't really, doesn't really mind what he wears and puts on, right? Even to the office, right? Until my mother will have to advise him even at the age of, I don't know, 40, 50, still advise him what to wear. So he's into comfort. So different essences behind different actions, right? This is just an example, but I think you get my point. That is to get to the real meaning, and sometimes people have forgotten what the meanings are, and oftentimes there's more than one meaning. So and that is the what is it, the art of phenomenological research is sometimes to ask different questions to get to the meaning, and then the meaning sometimes evolves, right? So if you ask a why question and you ask a when question, so you might get to the different answer. When do you decide to do this? So there was a why during a timeline. There is a why that triggered the person to do what the person does, right? But what the person does continue to do, right, might be coming from a different meaning. So they kind of discover a particular behavior, and then they say, well, and there was because a different reason, right? But then the behavior evolves, and the behavior is sustained because of different meanings, right? So that is where we want to capture from a phenomenological research. So it is a very, what is it? It's a very insightful kind of methodology when you do phenomenology. So it's the phenomenal is a phenomenon, the inner phenomenon that you want to capture, not the outer phenomenon that you want to capture, right? And if you look at the pioneers of the phenomenology, they talk about the inner world, the inner inside. If you do not understand the inner phenomenon, you do not understand the phenomena. And of course, the weakness of phenomenology is about emotions, right? So because these are philosophers who develop the phenomenology, they tend to focus on the consciousness more than the emotional conditionings, so the emotional conditioning might be forgotten, but then a good phenomenologist might be able to capture the emotional context as well, right? Something happened during certain time, therefore they develop certain meanings, maybe as well. So, yeah, that's the part about the essence there. Yeah, you're going really deep to get the essence. Going to the core of the consciousness. Okay, anyone else want to say anything or ask or comment? Sama, you're okay now? So revise it. You do not need to present again to the group. Just schedule a meeting, a presentation with CenPRIS. Communicate with Puan Washima, and then a proposal will be arranged for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome. All right. Do we have Suleiman, who has not slept the whole day today? Because it's what 2, 3, 4 o'clock now over there. Suleiman, are you there, Suleiman? Suleiman has gone, has hit the set. Oh, Suleiman? Oh, there you are. Oh, you have 2. No?
There's 2 of him.
Oh, careful there. You have 2 gadgets, right? No? All right, Suleiman, we are ready. Are you ready to share your slides?
Ready?
By the way, Suleiman is a true farmer. He has a big piece of land. Huh? He has a big piece of land. He has livestock, the whole bit, right? I'm an urban farmer, amateurist. He's like the hardcore professional farming guy. Huh? Tuan tanah. With whole family systems working together. All right, beautiful. That's good. Suleiman, you have your mic on? Yeah, just click at the bottom there so that you can maximize your PowerPoint.
Or press F5 on your keyboard.
Press F5. Yeah. So that we can have a bigger picture of your slide. Suleiman, can you hear me? Suleiman? You cannot hear me. We're running out of ink.
No.
But it's okay, so we have like 4 different inks. So
Different color.
So it's like ringgit and 40 cents, ringgit 80 cents. It's very good because it's basically 70 cents. So this is a backup system. Suleiman, you ready? Hello, Suleiman. Suleiman? Okay. Okay.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Can hear you loud and clear. Good. So, you may start now, Suleiman. Start now.
Yeah. My presentation today is going to look at some stages in thesis-writing. So it's like we are leaving all the issues that are discussed earlier now on Salma, basic issues of what kind of strategy to be adopted. Now we have come to the state of putting all the theoretical aspects into practice here. So generally, if you look at the essence of postgraduate studies, it has to do with the issue of equipping the students or equipping the scholars on how to improve their capacity on the process of empirical research. So all students of postgraduate studies must prepare themselves towards
presenting his work, isn't it? Okay.
writing good thesis and dissertation as a contribution to the body of knowledge and understanding of the social phenomena around us, for the understanding of social phenomena around us. This presentation is intended to give brief outline and explanation on the stages of thesis writing based on each chapter component requirement. The majority of the thesis in social sciences and sociology in particular holds about 4 to 5 chapters, and each chapter has its own specific elements which are discussed therein. This paper will give us the content requirement of each chapter of the thesis writing and the challenges which embedded within it. The first the first challenge for every postgraduate student has to do with what? With choosing a research topic. Choosing a research topic is key and central all the effort that one is about to build in the research process. So here we advise that before choosing your research topic, you have to be very careful and prudent to ensure that your topic is, you choose the right topic, which is feasible, researchable, and a very simple and straightforward. At the stage of topic selection, think about the sources of your primary and secondary data and your access to them. One should also look into the process of analysis and its outcome, because most of the postgraduate students find it very difficult when they choose the wrong topic. So choosing the right topic is key to the success of our postgraduate study. Are we together? I should enlarge it. Right. Hello, Prof. Is it okay?
Suleiman, slide share button.
Hello? Hello? Prof, can you hear me?
You may press slide share button, Suleiman.
Huh?
Slide share button. On the right side of
Slide.
the corner, slide share button. In the bottom of your
Is
slide.
it okay?
No, 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 no. No, not that one.
This one? This one?
Slide share. You have to go, your cursor, go to down. Go down. Bring your cursor to go down.
You mean if I want to select the next slide?
Slide share button. On the right side,
Slide.
the corner.
Okay, on the right. Prof, has it checked out of? Okay. 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 Okay.
That's right. There you go.
Yeah. Thank you. Is it okay now? Yeah, thank you. So, In my intro, yeah? Yeah, I can hear you. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. 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 Yeah. 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 Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. 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 Yeah. So, okay. So, what I'm saying is the first step of challenges in postgraduate studies about choosing the research topic. So, uh, we advise our colleagues in the academia and who are coming for postgraduate studies to take the right topic when beginning their postgraduate study. This is key and central to the success of their work in the postgraduate field. I try to dissect the chapter requirement of every, the chapter requirement in thesis writing. What I mean here is, I take chapter by chapter from chapter 1 up to chapter 5 and see the component requirement of each chapter. I can see from the previous presentation, the research presentation by Salma, I think this outline will also help her because the way she presented most of her chapter requirement, I think there is a lot of mix-up. But if we look here, the requirement of the chapters are in the following series. First and foremost, when you start writing your thesis, you have to give a background of the study. The background of the study will capture the main scholarly issues that borders on the topic you want to write on. That is why it is called a background of the study. That you tell your audience, or you tell your readers that this topic you are writing, this is what it talks about, or this is what it stands for. So background of the study is number one. Then you go to statement of problem. In the statement of problem, you rationalize why this study is worthy of taking a research journey, meaning that you have to problematize the topic in the statement problem, which maybe is the reason why you are enticed to write your thesis on, or it calls for what, or it was writing a thesis on. So the problem statement is another important area where all the issue of your research questions, research objectives, the research gaps are coming out. So problem statement is very, very vital point in the thesis writing. If you don't have the right problem statement, there is no way you will come up with the right research question or research hypothesis. If you don't have the right statement problem, there is no way you will come up with the right research objective. So problem statement or statement of the research problem is key and central to what? To carrying along your research work to the success point. The next item is, after putting all the research statement, the research questions, the research objectives, then it will lead you to what? Research gap, which your study will intend to fill. It means that from the research gap, it will give a point of your contribution after writing the thesis successfully. Then you follow up, by the time you get the research gap, it will lead you to what? Significance of the study. Why is this study important? Why is this paramount? And why is it vital? And it was research. Then you put all the reasons down there that the significance of your study. Scope and limitation of the study. When you talk of scope and limitation of the study, it has to do with what? The areas that you are going to cover during that research. Because generally research can be very wide and complex. But by the time you specify your scope and limitation of the study, it will go straight to the point that this research is limited to only so particular areas. You mention them one by one. Yes. So that if somebody can tell you anything outside this scope, outside you tell him that no, your research is only limited to so particular areas. So that's the importance of scope and limitation of your study, that it defines the borders of your work. So that people should not take you to the areas that you are not interested in or it doesn't affect your research process. Then the research assumptions. What are the major assumptions of your research? Then you set them, and all these I have them in my case. Operational definition of terms. In the research and thesis writing, and generally in the social research, definitions of terms is very important, because if you define your terms, nobody can misinterpret your work, and you are guiding all your readers or the readers of your work that so terms you are using in this work, it means this and that. It means you have to elicit and extract all the important points of your research, all the important vocabulary or terms in your work, to define them on how you use them in that particular research. This is very, very important. So that is why it is required to operationalize all the terms and vocabulary that you use, which are key. I mean, they are key concepts in your work. We should operationalize them and we should define them, how you utilize them and what you mean whenever you have cited them. So these are some of the key areas when you are putting your chapter 1 in the thesis. That background of the study, assessment of problems, the research questions, research objectives, the research gap, significance of your study, scope and limitation of your study, your research assumptions, and operational definitions of terms and concepts. The second aspect of the thesis writing goes to what? Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is one of another most important area of your research because it is there that you develop the literature review and the theoretical framework review. Under the literature review, you dwell on the concept of key terms discussed by other scholars, particularly on the topic you are writing. In relation to the topic of your work. So the literature review will look at the previous work of researchers on that particular area of your work, the arguments and some disagreements regarding theoretical postulations in relation to our work, and what arguments you consider with more weight than the others. That from the scholar's opinion, maybe you will be inclined to accept some opinion of the scholars above the other scholars. So what we are saying here, under the literature review, you look at your topic and you follow up all the previous work which are related to your work. Read it very well, extract the relationship with your present contemporary topic, and make the connection that the literature aspect will explain the scholarly opinion of your work. So, and it is from the literature review, then you go to the issues of theoretical framework review. Most of the social science researches, you see, it comes up with some theoretical framework. I think they are theoretical framework. And how does it look like? And how does it go a long way in justifying that this research is trying to give a new knowledge on the existing one we have. So that is why the issue of that research gap we have discussed in chapter 1. Also in the theoretical framework, you try to blend the issue of this research gap because it is the area where you can maybe buttress your research contribution. Yes, that maybe at the end of your finding, you can marry the research gap and with your findings, which will be your own area of contribution to the body of knowledge. So what we are saying in chapter 2 is you look at the broader perspective of the literature, previous literature, and then you digest them, you try to make the connections to agree or not agree with some of the opinions of the scholar. That is why it is called a literature review. Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is another key area that involves the technical aspect of the research process. All the technicalities of research will be explained in your chapter 3. That is why it is called Research Methodology chapter. It has to do with your methodology. That your research design, the issue of conceptual framework, the issue of population of your studies, the sample size of the studies, the sampling technique, the research hypothesis that you want to test, if any, then the data collection procedure, your research info. You also place it in your chapter 3, which will give you the idea about the end result of your research. So, methodology, chapter 3 deals with methodology aspect. Also, in the methodology, you explain in detail whether you are conducting a qualitative research or your research is purely quantitative, or are you doing a mixed method? So, chapter 3 aspects all the research technicalities end up there. Then we will follow it one by one and put it where it is supposed to be explained. Then after the chapter 3, we go to chapter 4. That yes, Prof. Yeah, Prof.
Okay, thank you. Suleiman,
Hello?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good. We will adjourn the presentation at this point first to chapter 3. I do want to say a couple of things about your presentation that you have shared. I think it's very important that we digest and understand the slides that you have shared with us. Suleiman, can you hear me, Suleiman? Hello? Okay, we will continue.
Hello, Prof.
Okay, all right. At this point, I will come in and I will share my thoughts about the certain important aspects of the points that you have shared with us, which were through in your slides, right? Which I think would be good because we do have a number of friends here who starting the process in either in chapter 1 or chapter 2, chapter 3. So I will make certain points and refer to what you have presented just now. So I just shared the slide that Suleiman shared, and we can probably share the slides. So in your first chapter, right? In your first chapter, and your second chapter, this is where there's what is it? There's some flexibility of the where if you're doing your write up, you can be a bit more flexible of which one you want to choose, right? How you want to arrange this. So in particular, I just want to make a point about the research gap. So the research gap is generally discussed, but not in depth in chapter 1, right? So chapter 1 is the chapter that is usually more or less, if you talk about the whole thesis, is not longer than 20 pages. So it's about 10 pages plus minus. So 20 pages, that will be enough. So there's not enough space to really go into the research gap. So you want to discuss more of the research gap in your chapter 2, right? So what you have laid out here is very helpful because yes, the research gap usually will come right in chapter 1, where you actually discuss the scope of research and how how this research will be important in certain aspects, which is the significance of study and all that. So, but we will go much more deeply in a discussion about the research gap in chapter 2, where you actually look at the literature, where you look at the conceptual or theoretical vacuum in chapter 2. And then that would lead to the theoretical framework and all that, right? Now, for chapter 2, which you highlighted, which Suleiman highlighted here, the theoretical framework. For certain types of research, you might not have theoretical framework at the beginning. What you do have is some kind of conceptual framework. Basically to how you're constructing the research. But for abductive research, you do not have a theoretical framework yet because the theory comes later. So the theory doesn't come early in the research, right? So you do have some kind of a map, kind of how you will analyze, how you proceed conceptually with your research. Then eco will have something here to to share later on when we get Iko, and we will have Iko share her research as well, and you will see how Iko designed chapter 2 and then chapter 3. And then in chapter 3, right? In chapter 3, oh, by the way, the literature review is actually an important part of chapter 2, important part in your research, because in literature review, you will see where your research is being situated, where your research is being placed in the larger context of discussion, right? So like Suleiman was analyzing poverty, and Suleiman the title is by advancing the poverty discourse, right? To look at poverty in a way that poverty has not been analyzed before. So this is where you lay out the works, the studies, the discussions that have been put forth by theories, by researchers, by thinkers in the field. Right? So literature review will come in very helpful. And then in terms of literature review, you could also connect to your chapter 1. See, your chapter 1, you have the operational definition of terms, right? So sometimes you could bring the operational definition of terms in your chapter 2. So for instance, if you're looking at poverty, right? So you can put poverty as part of your literature review, and then you define poverty. What is the definition of poverty that you are adopting, right? So that goes for all of your research. So it can go with CSR, it can go with education. So education should be one of the deliberation you should have, one of the in-depth discussion you should have on the literature, as well as eventually how you would define it, right? In vis-a-vis the context of your research, right? Now that said, for abductive research, sometimes you do not define it because you are interested in to see how social actors define the concept. You want to see how social actors construct the concept, right? But you can lay out what the main discourses on that particular concept. You can discuss that. And so sometimes in literature review, you can take your title, right, and then take the keywords of your title and use that to carry out your literature review. So sometimes what happened in some vivas I've seen is that certain key concepts are not being properly reviewed in the literature review. So you want to make sure that you actually address the key concepts in your research. Now, the other part about the literature review that's equally important is that there must be, in all fields, there are gurus or must have literature. Right, so in the I'm making reference to the viva I just attended my examiner, I think last week, right? And there was one is a viva about media, and the candidate missed out a very important literature, which is very important, coming from very important theories, which is the social construction of reality by Berger and Luckman, right? So it's like understanding Christianity without understanding Bible. You cannot understand Christianity without understanding Bible. Understanding Islam without understanding Quran. You cannot understand, right? So, and people will say, oh, how could you carry out research without having the gurus of that field in that research? So it is a must to have the must read in your literature review, right? So it's important that. So it's good that you raised this, right? It's in a way I did not plan it to be this way, but since you raised you presented this, so we will touch on it. So the literature review is about reviewing the key concepts in your research, especially if it's in your title. The other part is to make sure you capture, that you review the gurus or the must-read theories or people in your research, right? So that I remember my father told me the must have, should have, could have, right? So must have, should have, could have, right? So must is the the classic, the gurus, the people who define it, like CSR, person who started the word social responsibility, the book, right? The social responsibility of the businessman, right? Not the company, businessman, right? So you must have that capture that. CSR must have the word, Carol there. Now CSR, because another guru came in, they try to capture CSR, kind of hijacked CSR, which is Michael Porter, the most highly cited scholar in the world. So when he come in, of course he becomes a guru of CSR, right? He's like the Harvard professor, right? So he becomes a guru. So you must bring him in, even though some people say, why are you coming in so Johnny come lately into the literature? So you must understand that. Then you must also include the should, and then the could is something good to have. The could read, and this comes from a supervisor. I remember he told me, Reeve, when you do your literature review or you do your research, it's good to have footnotes and to read around the subject, right? So you want to show that, well, there's somebody who did some similar thing in Latin America or in Africa or in Northern America. So you show that you are a scholar in that field, and you have developed sufficient, or in fact, a level that is a scholarly level of knowledge in that particular field. So you want to demonstrate that. And a good way to demonstrate it, in addition to the must and the shoulds, is also to demonstrate it by the could haves, right? Or you show that, oh, this is good. Another way to look at the situation, another literature, right? So it's like, now people talk about sustainable development, but then there's this whole discourse and Anthropocene, right? Anthropocene is another epoch of human civilization, or human development, right? So I haven't seen a lot of it been researched yet. It so happened my supervisor from UK, he asked me to understand this Anthropocene. So how many people have written about Anthropocene? And Anthropocene is another rising, emerging discourse in social sciences, right? But it's coming from geography, by the way, right? So the must have, the should have, the could have, right? So that's another part. So that's literature review, and then methodology. We could go to the methodology, chapter 3, methodology. Suleiman, can you go to methodology slide?
Okay.
Since this is a good practice, Suleiman, you're using PowerPoint, you're using the WebEx, and this is a good practice for your Viva. Right. And by the way, I just want to make note. I actually wrote down to make note that it's good that you have two systems going on, right? I think you have your laptop and you have your phone, right? I would advise, under your condition, I would go for a third system, a backup system, a backup to the backups, right? So you have three systems, because in Viva, anything, if one system collapses, you have the other system. Three systems that will increase your probability of success, right? This is a finite maths. So you want to increase. So think about a third system, right? Another laptop, another computer, or go and borrow somebody or steal from somebody, right? Right. So it's good to do that. Now in the chapter 3,
I'm getting the right experience from this presentation.
Okay, good. Yeah, and then the other one, Suleiman. But we will go through this again the next time. I will ask you to make another presentation. The position of you and the camera and all that, right? So So, so because now I'm looking at you this way. So
because I'm using my phone.
Yes, I can see that.
To get the video.
Yeah, but this is good that you have two systems at work, right?
Yeah. But
So,
my PC is not showing the camera.
Yeah, you're not using the camera, you're using your phone, right? Okay. The other
Yeah,
one's not
I'm
using
using
the
my
camera. Yeah, because of the bandwidth and all that, the signal. Okay. What am I going to say now? All right, here you have chapter 3. Now, we want to take note that Suleiman's research is very much anchored on the quantitative part of the research. However, Suleiman has a very strong qualitative part as well, because the qualitative part is rich with data as well. Now, that said, the methodology is usually designed around one particular research strategy. Yeah. So for Suleiman's research strategy is very much a deductive research, because Suleiman was looking at certain theories, right? So this is very relevant. This is very systematic for a deductive research, where you actually have research hypothesis. But for other research strategies, you might not have hypothesis. So you note that if, for instance, Salma's, your research will not have hypothesis in there, right? So you put hypothesis in there, you will get into trouble maybe later on. But then again, sometimes examiners also do not understand methodology that well. I remember our guru Norman Blakey, his swan song, this lecture before he left USM, he was talking about hypothesis and how a lot of lecturers and scholars think that all research must have hypothesis. No, you can start research without hypothesis. But for Suleiman, your work, yes, hypothesis is extremely important, right? Because you're doing quantitative research. Hypothesis is very important. So I just want to note that for us in who are starting this research, there's certain parts that are important. That the sampling is important. The sampling is important, and oftentimes this chapter 3, which is methodology chapter, is where the examiners will attack, right? It's the easiest chapter to attack methodology, and there's many different holes and windows and doors to come in to attack. So you want to make your methodology chapters as tight as possible, as systematic as possible. And in the methodology chapter, one area that is often being attacked is sampling. So you want to make your sampling as tight, as systematic, as logical as possible. So and Suleiman's method, Suleiman did a huge identify a huge sample size, right? And you were studying the biggest province in Nigeria, right, Suleiman, if I remember correctly? Huh? Yobe State. Yeah, you call it state. Yeah, same. Yobe State.
Still remember, Suleiman. Yobe State.
Yeah. You use the word state, right? Not province. State. Yeah, we are British colony. Thank you for the British.
One of the states suffering from the insurgency of Boko Haram.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. In Nigeria. Yeah. So you were studying a big state, and you have a big sample size. And then if you have something like this, then the term random sampling becomes important, right? So deductive research, the random sampling is very important. Now you could use non-parametric analysis. Then you got to justify. So this is the part that that needs to be discussed in chapter 3. So Suleiman, the next presentation I will ask you to make, right, is your actual PhD presentation, yeah, Suleiman. So that you just like all our other candidates, that before they go through the Viva, they will make the presentation with the group first. So we'll ask that. So I will stop there first. Thank you very much, Suleiman, for your presentation here. Maybe we we will arrange something. No, maybe we will arrange something for you for the group supervision, and you will make your presentation. And then this time, be ready with WebEx, be ready with your double system, triple system, and then and slide sharing as well. So now you know how to share your slide and how to enlarge your PowerPoint there, right?
Raji. Yeah. Our technical crew.
He's the CTO here, Chief Technology Officer.
Technological. Thank you, bro, for the invitation.
Thank you, Suleiman. Thank you for staying up, yeah. And then you haven't slept. Now, what time is it now? 4 o'clock in the morning?
You can do
Yeah,
that.
4 o'clock. We'll pray Fajr now.
You pray Fajr now? Okay. Tahajjud first. Tahajjud first. Do your tahajjud.
It's 4:40.
Yeah. And then you thank you, Suleiman. By the
Thank
way,
you,
Suleiman,
bro.
Suleiman is the real farmer. He has like acres of orange trees and all kinds of trees, right? Huh? The landowner. He's the landowner. He's the feudal lord.
Lord also like one.
Feudal lord.
Hopefully someday we can visit.
Yeah, someday we'll visit Nigeria to see your farm, Suleiman. Then you have goats and cows too, right? Cattle too, right?
Wow.
Amazing, man. But we are talking about. All right, Suleiman. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, you may.
My pleasure.
You may.
And my pleasure to all the participants.
All right, Suleiman. Thank you. Appreciate this. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, next time we'll schedule you later in the day so that you can do it after your super prayer. All right. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
I went to prayer aja.
What is Suleiman? Can you turn off one of your system there because it's making a lot of noise? What is that? Is that? Okay. Good. Thank you. All right. We are ready for. Maybe we can take a short 3-5 minute break. I need it, and then we'll come back. So, Abaniza, you get your materials ready, and then we'll go to your presentation next. Yeah.
He said suddenly no power.
Huh? No power?
Yeah. Suddenly no power.
No power in Kuala Lumpur. What happened?